Namaste and welcome to Future Leaders produced by Today's Youth Asia. In this show, we discuss visionary ideas, talk about innovation, inspire youth leadership and nurture concerns for a better world. My name is Rosina and we are privileged to have Mr. Stephen Buri in our today's episode. Mr. Buri is an Executive Director of Discovery Institute. He has double major in political science and criminal justice. He is also a co-founder of Stewardship Partners. We also have with us my co-host Mr. Santosh Saha, the President of Today's Youth Asia. He is also an inspirational figure for many youths like us.
Today we have with us a very young accomplished personality from Washington State, Mr. Stephen Buri. He is the Deputy Mayor of Newcastle County, near Seattle. He is also the Vice President and Managing Director of Discovery Institute, which is a national-level public policy center. Mr. Buri, welcome to our show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on your program.
Can you tell us how your work impacts your community?
I wear two hats in my professional career. I am the Executive Director, as you mentioned, Managing Director of Discovery Institute. That is my day job, so that's how I spend the majority of my time. And I oversee a staff, as you mentioned, a group of 75 staff members, fellows, and people around the United States. It is a political think tank. Think tanks in the United States play really an important role in public policy. Think tanks develop ideas and really serve two primary purposes. One is to build public support for political ideas and concepts, and so we generate ideas and things that we think about, and then we try and build public support for those, and through that support, hopefully, people will talk to their legislators, and ultimately our ideas will become law. The other thing that we do is serve as a resource for elected leaders. So elected leaders will come to us and ask how they should approach a particular issue in order to learn how to make the best arguments that they can make. At the national level, through Discovery Institute, our work affects the national political landscape. We have been involved in science and cultural issues and technology policy and transportation issues, and really convening experts from around the country and bringing the best minds together to develop policies that can be implemented in Seattle, in Washington, D.C., and beyond. And so the impact to your average American citizen is that ultimately, if we're successful, our ideas will become law. At the local level, as Deputy Mayor, Newcastle is a city of about 10,000 people, so it's a smaller city, a suburb of Seattle. But, we try and promote policies that create a place where people want to live, with parks and security and places that are clean. And we've done that very successfully. And Newcastle is a beautiful community. And that's how my work as Deputy Mayor impacts the local population.
Stephen, earlier we talked about the concept of think tank. In South Asia, it's still a very new concept. How does that impact in making politics more effective in terms of development and moving ahead?
I think you have a great resource here in the young people. In Asian countries, and particularly Nepal, there's a real opportunity for good ideas to come forward, and that's what think tanks do. And we have contributors at our think tank from the very youngest people. We once had an intern who was a very bright kid that was 14 years old and contributed to our organization. And we have our president is 70 years old and is still contributing to public policy. So in Nepal, I think there's an opportunity for good ideas to come forward to be promoted through the assembly and other local governments. And I think that the young people that you have here and the young people that we've met hold a lot of great promise for the future of this country.
In that sense, do you suggest that political consultancy, consulting politicians can be a serious career?
I think absolutely. You know, in the United States, political think tanks have become very important because as the political leaders have become more focused on the day-to-day aspects of what they do, the laws that are placed before them, the laws that they're trying to develop, they have less time to kind of think forward about how about what they should be doing next. And think tanks contribute to the future of the United States, whether it be Seattle, Newcastle, or the entire country. And I think that in Nepal there is a similar promise for political consultants and think tanks and NGOs to contribute to the political process without being an elected leader.
You've also co-founded Stewardship Partners, which is an environmental-based organization.
Yes.
Can you tell us something about that?
Sure. In 1998, I had worked on a political campaign, and the person that I was working for unfortunately lost his election, but he and I decided to take the name ID that he had built, the fact that people knew who he was, and to develop it into a new organization. And our focus was on environmental issues. In Washington State and Seattle, environmental issues are very important. But we saw an area that was underserved, and that is that in the United States, government tends to develop environmental policies to protect the environment and impose those rules and restrictions on the population and on companies. And there was not an effort to involve and reward individual property owners. And so at Stewardship Partners, what we do is work with private landowners who want to do good things for the environment, or they want to clean up a stream, or they want to protect their property. And we try and get government to reward those efforts, because too often in the United States we punish people for doing bad things. And we wanted to reward private landowners who made good choices and did good things for the environment.
Stephen, you also have a great family, 2 kids.
Yes, I do.
And you live in and you live in a county. How important it is that a society is built upon moral values and children are raised with that? Well,
I think it's very important. I am in a traditional family, and that means I have a wife and 2 kids. There are lots of different family units, but you know, in the United States and other places there are divorces and there are lots of single parents. I think it's very important for the kids in particular to grow up with the influence of a mom and dad and to have day-to-day involvement and investment in the kids. With my daughter is in ballet and piano, and my son loves soccer and sports, and so encouraging their involvement in those kinds of activities I think are important, and creating a well-rounded child. And so that's what my wife and I are trying to do.
Let's talk to the young people of Nepal.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
What kind of obstacles you faced while you had started your political career, first as a senior assistant to U.S. Senator Slade Gorton?
There were a number of obstacles. First of all, those jobs are somewhat difficult to get. When I worked for Senator Gorton, there are a lot of people who want to work for a United States Senator because it's great experience. And so that was an obstacle. I am from eastern Washington, which is, I'm from a town of 2,800 people. So I had to move to the big city. I mean, moving was an obstacle. And so those are some of the challenges that I faced. And those are the things that come to mind.
How important do you think is it to get a degree in political science to be a politician? I mean, there are many politicians who do not have a degree in political science, yet they are doing with it. So
that's a good question. Most people who are in politics probably do not have a political science degree. And quite honestly, political and science don't really go together that well. Politics is not a science. The sciences that you study have very definitive answers and formulas, and politics is not a formulaic process. It's relationships, it's developing ideas and concepts, and so political science is not necessary to be in politics. I like to joke that I'm one of about 3% probably of people that have a political science degree doing something in politics, so it's unusual.
In South Asia or in many developing countries, we see politicians with almost no education, or they're into school or colleges because of hooliganism. So is there a relation between that, your leaders not being educated and the country being a third world country or developing country, or the leaders being educated and the country progressing and developing, or being developed?
Well, it's an interesting question, because when I worked for Senator Gorton, Slade Gorton was known as one of the smartest, brightest people. He was an attorney. There are 100 members of the United States Senate, and Slade was probably the smartest one of all of them. Very, very bright. That said, there are some people in politics who don't have a degree and maybe aren't particularly qualified or well qualified. So in the United States and even in other countries, I think there is some luck involved in getting elected to public office. And the best person and the most qualified and the smartest doesn't always win. Sometimes circumstances are such that people want to pick a particular party instead of a particular person. They like the ideas of a particular party. So you might have a weaker person or a weaker candidate in a political party who wins an election because the tide is going that way.
Is there anyone who inspired you to start your career?
My parents did a good job of raising me and encouraging me to get a good education. I'm part of the Republican Party in the United States, and I was raised thinking that the Republican Party was the party that my parents were most closely aligned to, but they weren't particularly political people. In 1992, I interned in Washington, D.C., and really learned a lot about the political process and fell in love with politics, and actually came back, and that's when I decided to get a degree in political science. Now, I've had a couple of 2 or 3 mentors, people that I look up to in political life, the president of Discovery Institute, the co-founder, the person that I founded Stewardship Partners with, and certainly Slade Gorton are people that I looked up to. But it's hard to point to one person who inspired me in my professional career. I've kind of been molded by a lot of different people.
How tough is it to manage your personal and professional life?
It's very difficult. In fact, one thing that political people in the United States or wherever give up to be in politics is time with your family and balancing the needs of your family and finding time for everything that you have to do in your life. And so one thing that people give up is some of your freedoms. The other, not necessarily your freedoms, but the freedom to do what you want when you want. Because you'll find that when you're in elected office, people want things from you all the time. And if they send you an email or they call you, they want to hear back from you right away. And if I want to get reelected, I have to respond quickly to people, and I have to be accessible to people. And that's one of the big challenges, is that I may have something going on in my personal life that I have to give up in order to respond to a constituent, someone who I represent.
So do you face any regrets, anything that you cannot enjoy your freedom and all?
No, I don't have any regrets about it. I very much enjoy what I do. But my wife is very understanding of when I need to respond to someone and the time that it takes to be in political office. And honestly, it's something that husbands and wives talk about before you jump into it. Because both of you know that you'll be giving up a lot of personal time to do it. But I find it very rewarding, particularly in the community where I serve as deputy mayor. It's important to be a part of the process and the future of the city and creating a city that we all want to live in. And I have a unique perspective because I have young kids, and most people on the council have older children than I do, so I have a unique perspective, and I think that's important to bring to the council.
In the beginning, how did you manage to oversee the approximately 75 employees and scholars?
Well, it was very stressful when I began because I thought, I don't know if I can do this job. I think people of any culture have self-doubts about themselves. And that was an obstacle for me to think. I like to joke that I manage a lot of people that are much smarter than I am. And so it's been interesting for me to learn how to interact with people, how to manage people, and that's been a big challenge.
How do you view the political status of Nepal?
It has been a fascinating visit. We have had the opportunity to meet with some of your top leaders. And the political status here, I think it's easy to think that there are challenges that are too big to overcome. But quite honestly, they're not too big to overcome, and I think Nepal has a very bright future. I said at one of our meetings that in the United States we recently passed a law that many people thought couldn't happen. And while there are still very serious disagreements about the law, people were skeptical that it would ever pass, and this was a law on health care issues. And so working together, I think the people of Nepal and your leadership, and particularly the young people and getting involved, will paint a very bright future for the people of Nepal and the country here.
How do you feel managing grant writing process and serving as lead on contract negotiation?
Well, that's an interesting question because that's how I spend a lot of my time. Discovery Institute is a nonprofit organization, and in the United States that just means that we are not trying to make money. We raise money to cover the expenses of our research and the work that we do. And that support comes from individual donors, corporations, and foundations. And most foundations have an application process where you write a grant. You have to write what you're going to do and why it's important and what you hope to come out of it. And the goal is to get those foundations to provide money so that we can carry that agenda forward. And I spend probably 2/3 of my time writing proposals and fundraising letters and reaching out to our members and working with our board to raise money. So that's a very important role because we have to have money to pay people.
Do you think that not well-educated people can hinder in the process of political movements?
No, I don't think so. I think that everyone has something to contribute. In Newcastle, there are a number of ways for people to get involved, and they don't involve running for public office. And so I think that we have various organizations that do lots of great things, and anyone can contribute to the betterment of a community without running for public office. So I think there are lots of opportunities out there, and I suspect there are lots of opportunities here in Nepal too.
How old were you when you first came to the political scenario?
I graduated from college I was in student government at Washington State University. So in my university, I was a student senator, and there were 18 senators representing a total of 20,000 students. And so at that time, I was about 21 years old. That's when I first started. And then after I graduated from college and had my degree, I got involved in a couple of statewide political campaigns. So I've always had an interest in politics, and I got involved quite early.
How important is it to have young political leaders in politics?
Young people, no matter what country or culture, are the future of the country. And so having people involved in learning and getting to know about political issues and getting to know how to contribute, I can't stress the importance enough. If you imagine a scenario where no one got involved, things would be very difficult for the country or the community that you're in. We need young people involved, and again, there are lots of ways to get involved and to participate in this country and in other countries around the world.
Did you ever come upon such a situation in which you just wanted to leave politics?
In the United States, things are very cyclical. That means that things change over time. So right now, for instance, the Republican Party at the national level does not have a lot of power. The Democratic Party, President Barack Obama is a Democrat. The United States Senate is led by the Democrats, as is the House of Representatives. So it would be easy to get frustrated and say, well, as a Republican, I can't accomplish anything. I can't get anything done. But the truth is, over time, the American people, throughout the course of history, have gone with the party, and then they become dissatisfied with the party. And that's what happened that led to the Democratic majorities that we have right now. People were dissatisfied with the Republicans, and the Democrats took over. And inevitably, even Democrats will tell you that the people will tire of Democratic policies, and Republicans will take over. So I think if you wait long enough, things will change, and so you tend not to get too frustrated or disheartened.
Stephen, how did the public policy and political think tank begin in America? Because I think in South Asia we're still struggling with that concept.
Most think tanks originated in the 70s and 80s. And it was, I think, if you look at think tanks in the United States, most of them are conservative. There are not very many political think tanks that are more liberal or democratic. And for conservatives in particular, I think tanks were an answer to what students and others were being taught at the universities. They were being taught a more liberal philosophy, and think tanks on the conservative side were trying to instill in young people principles that went back to the American founding, and providing training to people in a more traditional sense. And so political think tanks have a really recent history. They've been around in the United States, and yet they've contributed immensely to the political process there.
With this, we have come to the end of today's show. Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen Buri and Mr. Santosh Saha, for being with us and sharing with us your insightful thoughts and ideas. We look forward to your feedback. Our email address is youth@tya@gmail.com. Thank you for watching us. We will be back next week at the same time. Have a nice week. Namaste.